Welcome to Mommy Academy.
Watching.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to continue reading this beautiful children's Bible called the Jesus Storybook Bible. Do you remember who it's by?
Sally Lloyd Jones.
Very good. It's by Sally Lloyd Jones. She's a brilliant author. She ties each story back to Jesus just the way it should be. And we really enjoy the stories and the pictures. And today we're going to continue reading through the Bible. Tankie, can you tell us what happened in the last story?
So, Moses had a colorful coat.
Not Moses, Joseph.
Joseph had a colorful coat, and he had all these brothers, and then they were jealous. So made them into slavery, and they said, "Hey, you died." Yeah.
Yeah. Did Joseph stay in slavery?
Yeah.
Not forever. God had a bigger plan. Do you remember what happened next?
No.
Joseph became like the king of Egypt.
What? The king of Egypt?
That's right.
And then he became the king of Egypt. So.
Well, he was like the king of Egypt. There was the king who was above him. But Joseph could tell everyone what to do.
What?
That's right. And God helped Joseph to know that there wasn't going to be any food growing in the future. And so he needed to save food so that when there was a famine, there was no food, they would have food to eat. And because God told Joseph that, they had food when there was a famine. Now, do you know who came to ask Joseph for food?
No.
Joseph's mean brothers.
What?
That's right. Now, did Joseph say, no food for you, you are mean?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. He said, of course you can have food, and I forgive you, and I love you, and I'm here to help you. It was such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
That's right. And he did. Joseph helped his mean brothers, and he also helped his daddy and his nice brother, Benjamin. Okay, so we're going to continue reading. And this is the story called God to the Rescue. There's a picture from the book. Moses and the Great Escape from Egypt, from Exodus 3:13. Joseph and his brothers grew old and died, but their children's children stayed in Egypt, where they became a very large family. Later on, a new king began to rule, but this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph, and he didn't like God's people. He made them into slaves and beat them and made them work harder and harder. God's people cried out to God to rescue them, and God heard them. He remembered his promise to Abraham. He would look after his people. He would find a way to set them free. One day, Moses was looking after sheep when something caught his eye. A bush was behaving very oddly. It was flickering with flames, but its leaves were not burning up. He took a closer look. Moses, boomed a big voice. Moses leapt back. The bush was talking to him. I've heard my people's cries, God said. I've seen their tears. So I have come down to rescue them. Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go free. Moses was afraid, but God said, I will be with you. Here's the next pictures. Oh, whoopsie, we lost our place. Nope, that's not the next pictures. These are the next pictures. I grabbed the wrong page. Okay. So Moses went to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, Moses began. God, says Pharaoh. Never heard of him. Moses kept going. God says, let his people go free. Why should I? Pharaoh said. Don't want to, won't. So he didn't. So God gave Pharaoh 10 warnings called plagues. First, God turned the river Nile into blood. No one could drink the water, but Pharaoh still would not let them go. So God made frogs come hopping and leaping and jumping in your bed, frogs, in your hair, frogs, in your soup, frogs, all over, everywhere, frogs. Make them go away, Pharaoh screamed. Then your people can go. So God took the frogs away. But Pharaoh changed his mind. You can't go, he said. Then God sent zillions of gnats, but still Pharaoh said, no. So then God sent swarms of flies, flies buzzing in your eyes, flies, and after that, sickness and horrible boils, and huge hailstones, and a storm of locusts, then darkness when it should have been day, until it seemed that the whole world, creation and everything was coming undone, falling back into darkness and emptiness and nothingness. Wow, that sounds horrible. All those plagues. But each time Pharaoh said, make it stop and then I'll let them go. And each time when God made it stop, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, actually, no, you can't go. Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, obey God, or he will have to send the worst thing of all. Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, the oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die, but my people will be safe. God told his people to take their best lamb, to kill it, and to put some of its blood on their front doors. When God passes over your house, Moses explained, God will see the blood and know that the lamb died instead of you. That night, it was just as God said. Suddenly, piercing the darkness, echoing down the corridors of the palace, came a blood-curdling shouted, just go! Oh, so sad. Pharaoh should have not been lying all that time. And here they are. They are going. They are leaving Egypt.
Yep, and you're in the desert, so.
That's right. And so that very night, Moses and God's people fled out of Egypt and out of slavery. They were free at last. God's people would always remember this great rescue and call it Passover. But an even greater rescue is coming. Many years later, God was going to do it again. He was going to come down once more to rescue his people. But this time, God was going to set them free forever and ever. Do you know how God is going to set everyone free forever?
No.
Jesus.
Jesus?
That's right. Jesus made it where we can all go to heaven and we're set free forever and ever. Wow, that was a cool story, huh?
Yeah.
There were all those people who wanted to be free from slavery, free from the Egyptians, but the king of Egypt wanted them to all work for him. And so God had to do some pretty interesting things. He turned the river into blood. He sent tons of frogs, tons of flies called gnats. He made it dark all the time. And then because Pharaoh kept on saying, you can go, no you can't, you can go, no you can't, God had Pharaoh's son die. And then Pharaoh said, just go. I know that God is more powerful and I don't want any more trouble with him. Should we make trouble with God?
No.
That is not a very smart thing to do, is it? Well, I can't wait until our next story time. Please like, please share, please subscribe. We want to bring as much value to as many children and educators as we can. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.